She stood in Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom, caught red-handed with overwhelming evidence against her, and did something so audacious that even the seasoned bailiffs couldn't believe it. 23-year-old Ashley Morgan, daughter of Providence Police Chief Robert Morgan, pulled out her cell phone in the middle of her hearing and called her daddy. Right there. In open court. While the judge was speaking. And what Judge Caprio did next would become the most viral courtroom moment of the decade. He didn't confiscate her phone. He didn't hold her in contempt. Instead, he said 5 words that made the entire courtroom hold its breath: "Put it on speakerphone, please." What happened in the next 7 minutes would expose a culture of corruption, destroy a police chief's career, and prove that some parents enable their children right into catastrophe. My name is Judge Frank Caprio, and in my 35 years on the bench, I've never witnessed a clearer example of how parental enabling destroys both children and public trust. If you believe that no badge should protect criminals, even if they're family, hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and whatever you do, don't leave before you hear what Ashley's father said when I put him on speaker in front of the entire courtroom. This is the story of how one phone call exposed everything wrong with privilege, nepotism, and a father who loved his daughter so much he destroyed her. Ashley Morgan grew up as the only child of Police Chief Robert Morgan, a 30-year veteran who had dedicated his entire adult life to law enforcement. Her mother, Elizabeth Morgan, was a high school principal who shared her husband's protective instincts toward their daughter. Ashley attended the best private schools in Providence, lived in a mansion in the city's most exclusive neighborhood, and drove a BMW that her father purchased for her 18th birthday. But beneath the surface of this privileged life was a disturbing pattern that had been developing for 5 years, a pattern of arrests followed by mysterious dismissals, of consequences that somehow always disappeared, of a young woman learning that the rules simply didn't apply to her. Ashley's first arrest came at age 18 when she was caught shoplifting nearly $800 worth of makeup and designer clothes from an upscale mall boutique. Store security detained her and called the police, standard procedure for theft of that value. But before the officers arrived, Ashley made a phone call to her father. Chief Morgan appeared at the scene in full uniform, spoke privately with the store manager, and within an hour the charges had vanished. The security footage that had captured Ashley's theft was mysteriously erased due to what was called a technical malfunction. The store manager later admitted to friends that the chief had suggested that health inspectors might take a very close look at the mall's food court operations if the matter proceeded. The message was clear, and the charges disappeared. 1 year later, Ashley was 19 and was asked to leave a downtown bar after becoming belligerent with staff. She had been drinking despite being underage, and when a bouncer tried to escort her out, she became violent. She slapped the bartender who had refused to serve her additional alcohol. The bartender called the police to file an assault report. Ashley called her father from the bathroom. Chief Morgan arrived before the patrol officers, claimed he was handling a family matter, and the situation evaporated. The bartender was pressured to drop the complaint. When the bar owner hesitated to comply, the establishment's liquor license renewal was mysteriously delayed for 3 months until the owner finally agreed to let the matter die quietly. At age 20, Ashley was arrested for her first driving under the influence charge. She was pulled over at 2 in the morning after weaving across multiple lanes. Her blood alcohol level measured 0.16, exactly twice the legal limit. The body camera footage showed her failing every field sobriety test dramatically, stumbling, unable to walk a straight line, slurring her words. She called her father from the scene. Chief Morgan arrived and took the arresting officer aside for a private conversation. The charges were never filed. The officer who made the arrest was transferred to the evidence room within a month, essentially a demotion that everyone in the department understood as punishment for not showing proper deference to the chief's daughter. The body camera footage was reported as corrupted during the digital transfer process. Just another technical malfunction, another piece of evidence that conveniently disappeared. This pattern continued and escalated. A hit and run in a parking garage where Ashley damaged another vehicle and fled the scene, only to have her father personally pay the victim $5,000 in cash to drop the complaint. A second DUI where she crashed her first BMW into a fire hydrant, totaling the vehicle and flooding an entire street, but medical staff at the hospital were instructed not to perform a blood alcohol test by a senior officer on scene. Ashley spent that night in the hospital with minor injuries and was driving a brand new BMW her father purchased for her the following week, calling it a graduation present even though she had never graduated from anything. The pattern became so well known within the Providence Police Department that officers began referring to Ashley as the chief's problem. Younger officers learned quickly that if they encountered the chief's daughter, the smart move was to call a supervisor and let someone else handle the situation. The unspoken rule was clear: writing up Ashley Morgan was a career-limiting move. Officers who tried to hold her accountable found themselves transferred to undesirable shifts or assignments. Evidence had a way of disappearing. Witnesses suddenly became unavailable. The system was corrupted from top to bottom, all to protect one young woman from facing the consequences of her increasingly reckless behavior. But every system has its breaking point, and Ashley's came on a Friday night in late October when she crashed her BMW through the front window of Marcello's Bakery on Federal Hill. Ashley had spent that evening bar hopping with friends, drinking heavily at multiple establishments across downtown Providence. Security footage from various locations would later show her stumbling, knocking drinks off bars, and loudly proclaiming to anyone who questioned her behavior that her father was the police chief. By 11:15 that night, she was grossly intoxicated, yet she insisted on driving despite her friends' protests. She told them what she had learned over 5 years of being rescued: "I'm fine, I always drive, Daddy fixes everything." She pulled out of a parking spot without looking, immediately swerved into the wrong lane, and accelerated down Federal Hill's main street at speeds estimated between 50 and 60 miles per hour in a 25-mile-per-hour zone. She ran a red light at a major intersection and lost complete control of her vehicle. The BMW jumped the curb and crashed directly through the plate glass window of Marcello's Bakery, a family-owned business that had served the Providence community for 47 years. The car punched through the window and came to rest halfway inside the store, having destroyed display cases full of fresh cannolis and pastries that had been prepared for the next morning's customers. The owner, 67-year-old Marcello Ricci, and his son Marco were working late in the back kitchen, preparing dough for the Saturday morning rush. They heard the tremendous crash and ran to the front of their store to find Ashley's BMW embedded in their business, glass everywhere, alarms blaring, and 3 young women climbing out of the vehicle screaming. Marcello immediately called 911. Ashley's first instinct, before checking if anyone was hurt, before offering any apology, was to grab her cell phone from the car and call her father. The speakerphone conversation was audible to the Ricci family standing just feet away. Ashley's panicked voice: "Daddy, Daddy, I need you." Chief Morgan's response: "What happened? Are you hurt?" "Ashley, I crashed the car, there's people here, please come fix this." The chief asked where she was, and Ashley gave him the location, then said the words that Marcello Ricci would later repeat in court: "Daddy, please hurry, don't let them arrest me." Chief Morgan's response was immediate and telling: "Don't say anything, don't take any tests, I'm coming now." This conversation, overheard by witnesses, would become crucial evidence that the chief had actively instructed his daughter to obstruct justice even before understanding the severity of what had happened. 2 patrol officers arrived within minutes: Officer Jessica Ramirez, a 7-year veteran, and Officer Michael Torres, who had 4 years of experience. Both officers recognized Ashley immediately. Everyone in the Providence Police Department knew the chief's daughter. Their body cameras captured everything that happened next. Officer Ramirez approached Ashley professionally and asked if she was the driver. Ashley's response was not an answer but a demand: "I want my father." When Officer Ramirez explained that she needed Ashley to step away from the vehicle and asked if she had been drinking, Ashley refused to engage with the question and instead tried to call her father again. Officer Torres asked her to put the phone down so they could assess the situation. Ashley, phone pressed to her ear, told them that Daddy was coming and they couldn't do anything until he arrived. Officer Ramirez, following standard protocol for suspected drunk driving, asked Ashley to perform a field sobriety test. Ashley refused outright, still attempting to reach her father on the phone. When Officer Ramirez explained that refusing the test was itself a violation and asked Ashley to comply, Ashley became aggressive and defiant. She told the officers that she wasn't doing anything without her father present. Officer Torres reminded her that her father being the police chief didn't change the law. Ashley's response revealed everything about what she had learned over 5 years of being protected. It changes everything. He'll be here in 5 minutes and you'll both be sorry. Her friends, sobering up from the shock of the crash, tried to convince Ashley to cooperate with the officers. Ashley pushed one of her friends and told her to shut up, that she didn't understand, that her dad ran the entire department. When Officer Ramirez attempted to administer a portable breathalyzer test, Ashley's behavior escalated from defiance to violence. She smacked the device out of the officer's hand, and it hit the pavement and broke into pieces. Both officers' body cameras captured this action with perfect clarity. Officer Torres informed Ashley that she had just struck an officer's equipment and that this constituted assaulting an officer. Ashley screamed that she hadn't assaulted anyone and that the officers were harassing her because of who she was. When Officer Ramirez attempted to place Ashley under arrest and told her to put her hands behind her back, Ashley's response was to threaten both officers with her father's authority. She screamed that they shouldn't dare touch her, that her father would have their badges, that they would both regret this. Ashley then tried to run back to her car, forcing Officer Torres to gently restrain her with minimal force. Every moment was captured on body camera footage. Ashley screamed as if she was being murdered. She began kicking at the officers wildly. She was completely out of control. Officer Ramirez called for backup, reporting that they had a combative suspect who was resisting arrest. Both officers were forced to physically restrain Ashley, who continued kicking and screaming and spitting at them. In a moment that would prove crucial to the case, Ashley bit Officer Torres's hand through his protective glove, breaking the skin. The body camera captured this assault clearly and undeniably. With Ashley continuing to fight, both officers had no choice but to place her in handcuffs. Even restrained, Ashley continued screaming for her father, yelling his name over and over as if he were a magic word that would make all of this disappear. A crowd had gathered on the street. Multiple witnesses were recording the entire scene on their cell phones. Marcelo Ricci stood nearby filming everything, documenting the destruction of his business and the behavior of the woman who had caused it. Chief Robert Morgan arrived approximately 12 minutes after the crash. His black unmarked police vehicle pulled up with emergency lights flashing. He jumped out wearing his full dress uniform, though he had been off duty when Ashley called him. This was a calculated choice, a psychological power move meant to remind everyone present of his authority. He strode toward the scene with the bearing of a man who expected immediate deference. He demanded to know what was going on. Officer Ramirez, maintaining her professionalism despite obvious nervousness at confronting her ultimate superior, explained that they had responded to a vehicle crash into a business. She reported that the driver was intoxicated, had refused sobriety testing, had destroyed a breathalyzer device, had resisted arrest, and had assaulted an officer. She indicated Ashley, now in handcuffs, and explained that she was being detained pending formal charges. Chief Morgan looked at his daughter restrained in handcuffs. He saw the bite mark bleeding on Officer Torres's hand. He saw the massive damage to Marcelo's bakery behind them, with Ashley's BMW still embedded in the storefront. He saw the crowd of witnesses recording everything on their phones. He saw Marcelo Ricci standing there watching him, waiting to see if the chief of police would do what was right or what was convenient. This was the moment that would define everything. For 5 years, Chief Morgan had made evidence disappear, pressured officers to drop charges, paid off victims, and used his position to protect his daughter from every consequence. He had built his career on integrity and service to the community, but he had corrupted that career systematically to shield Ashley from reality. Now he stood at a crossroads with dozens of witnesses and multiple cameras documenting his choice. The silence stretched for what felt like minutes but was only seconds. Everyone watched the chief, waiting. Ashley, still in handcuffs, saw her father and immediately began demanding that he fix this situation. She screamed at him to tell the officers to let her go, to make this stop, to do what he always did. She reminded him that he always fixed everything. Her voice carried across the street, shrill and entitled and desperate. Chief Morgan looked at his daughter and saw something he had been avoiding for 5 years. He saw not a victim of overzealous police work but a violent, out-of-control young woman who had just destroyed a family business, assaulted a police officer, and endangered lives. He saw what his protection had created. He saw the monster his love had made. Chief Morgan turned to Officer Ramirez and Officer Torres and spoke words that shocked everyone present, including his daughter. He told them to process her according to standard protocol. Ashley screamed at him, asking what he was doing, demanding that he tell the officers to release her. Chief Morgan told his daughter to be quiet. She refused, screaming that he always fixed these situations and demanding that he fix this one. Chief Morgan's voice broke slightly as he said the words that would begin to change everything. "I can't, not this time." Ashley couldn't comprehend what was happening. She screamed at her father that yes, he could fix this, that he was the chief, that he had the power to make the officers stop. Chief Morgan turned away from his daughter and walked to Marcelo Ricci, the elderly baker whose business now had a luxury vehicle embedded in its front window. The chief apologized deeply for what his daughter had done to the family business. He promised that his office would be in contact about restitution and stated clearly that his daughter would be charged appropriately. Marcelo Ricci stood in stunned silence, having expected the same intervention he had heard about from other business owners over the years. Instead, he was witnessing something unprecedented, the chief of police allowing his own daughter to face consequences. Chief Morgan could not meet Marcelo's eyes for long. The shame was too heavy. Ashley was placed in the patrol car, still screaming threats about how everyone involved would be fired, how her father would destroy their careers, how this was illegal. The officers read her Miranda rights while she refused to listen, continuing to call for her father. Chief Morgan stood apart from the scene, watching paramedics check his daughter for injuries from the crash. She had only minor cuts from the broken glass. His face showed a man at war with himself, torn between every instinct to protect his child and a growing realization that protection had become poison. Officer Ramirez approached the chief and asked quietly if he needed a moment. Chief Morgan told her no, to take Ashley in for full booking. When Ramirez mentioned that Ashley was asking for him, the chief said he knew, but to take her in anyway. Ashley was transported to Providence Police Headquarters for processing. From the booking area, she called her father 17 times. Every call was logged by the system. Chief Morgan did not answer a single one. Ashley was processed through standard procedure, fingerprints taken, booking photos captured, blood test administered. Her blood alcohol level came back at 0.23, nearly 3 times the legal limit. She had been catastrophically drunk when she crashed through that bakery window. The charges filed against her were the most serious she had ever faced, driving under the influence as a third offense within 18 months, reckless driving, destruction of property, attempted leaving the scene of an accident, refusal to submit to chemical testing, resisting arrest, assault on a law enforcement officer for both destroying the breathalyzer and biting Officer Torres, and disorderly conduct. These were not charges that could be quietly dismissed. The evidence was overwhelming and public. At 12:30 in the morning, Ashley was allowed her one phone call from jail. She called her father. This time, Chief Morgan answered. Ashley's voice was desperate, begging him to come get her, pleading with him to make this stop. She told him she was scared, that she had never spent a night in jail before. Chief Morgan told her she would stay there until her arraignment the next morning. Ashley couldn't believe what she was hearing. She reminded him that he had never made her stay in jail before. The chief responded that those charges hadn't been this serious. When Ashley cried that she needed him, that she was his daughter, Chief Morgan's voice was thick with emotion as he told her he knew who she was and that was why this was so hard. Ashley demanded to know why he was doing this to her. Her father's response cut through years of enabling in one simple sentence, "I'm not doing this to you, you did this to yourself." Ashley hung up on him, and her screaming could be heard throughout the cell block. Ashley spent that night in a jail cell, her first night ever experiencing real consequences. The cells were clean but institutional, cold and uncomfortable in ways she had never experienced. She cried through the entire night. Other inmates, annoyed by her constant sobbing, told her to be quiet. Ashley Morgan, who had spent 23 years having every comfort provided and every problem solved by her father's intervention, was learning what it felt like to be powerless. She was learning what it felt like when Daddy couldn't or wouldn't save her. The night stretched endlessly. She had no phone, no comfort, no escape. She had only herself and the reality of what she had done. Monday morning arrived, and Ashley was brought to Providence Municipal Court for her arraignment before Judge Frank Caprio. The courtroom was packed with spectators. Word had spread through the police department and the community that the chief's daughter was finally facing real charges. Police officers filled some of the gallery seats, divided between those who supported Chief Morgan's difficult decision and those who were disgusted by the years of enabling that had preceded it. Marcello Ricci sat in the courtroom with his family, the victims of Ashley's reckless behavior. Ashley's mother, Elizabeth Morgan, was there as well, her face showing the evidence of hours of crying. Media representatives from 3 local television stations and the city newspaper occupied the press section. This was a story that mattered to Providence. Ashley was brought into the courtroom wearing an orange jail jumpsuit, looking nothing like the glamorous young woman whose Instagram account showed a life of luxury and privilege. Her hair was disheveled, her face bare of makeup, her eyes swollen from crying through the night. She looked small and frightened and utterly lost. Judge Frank Caprio entered the courtroom and everyone rose. He took his seat at the bench and surveyed the packed gallery with his characteristic calm authority. He understood immediately that this case carried weight far beyond a simple drunk driving charge. This was about trust in the justice system. This was about whether power and privilege could corrupt accountability. This was about a community watching to see if the rules applied equally to everyone. The prosecutor outlined the charges and requested bail be set at $25,000 cash, arguing that Ashley was a flight risk given her history and her father's pattern of intervention. Ashley's attorney, an expensive lawyer named Charles Whitfield who had obviously been hired by her father, argued that the charges were exaggerated and that Ashley had strong community ties and posed no flight risk whatsoever. He requested release on personal recognizance. Judge Caprio asked Ashley to stand and asked if she understood the charges against her. Her voice was barely audible as she answered yes. The judge then revealed something that made the courtroom erupt in murmurs. He stated that he had reviewed not only the current police reports and body camera footage but also Ashley's entire arrest history in Providence. All 6 previous incidents. 7 arrests over 5 years with not a single conviction, not a single consequence, not a single night in jail until Friday. Judge Caprio looked directly at Ashley and asked her a question that cut to the heart of everything. He asked whether she thought her perfect record of avoiding consequences was extraordinary luck or extraordinary intervention. The silence in the courtroom was absolute. Ashley looked desperately at her lawyer, who tried to argue that her past wasn't relevant to current bail determination. Judge Caprio disagreed firmly, stating that pattern of behavior was extremely relevant. He said the court needed to understand why someone with 7 arrests had never faced a single consequence. The prosecutor then approached with an evidence package, body camera footage from both officers, security camera footage from the bakery, cell phone videos from 6 witnesses, photographs of the destroyed storefront, medical reports on Officer Torres's bite wound, blood alcohol test results, and Ashley's complete arrest history with detailed notations about how each case had been dismissed. Judge Caprio spent several minutes reviewing the materials while the courtroom waited in tense silence. Then he ordered the body camera footage to be played. For 12 minutes, everyone in that courtroom watched Ashley's behavior in crystal clarity. They watched her stumble from her crashed vehicle and immediately call her father before checking on anyone's safety. They heard the audio of that first call where Chief Morgan instructed her to refuse all tests. They watched her refuse the breathalyzer and then violently knock it from the officer's hand. They watched her kick and scream and fight the officers who were simply doing their jobs. They watched her bite Officer Torres. They heard her entitled threats about her father having the officers' badges. They watched Chief Morgan arrive and witnessed Ashley demanding that Daddy fix everything. The footage was damning and undeniable and horrifying in its clarity. When the video ended, Judge Caprio spoke about what he had witnessed. He said that in 35 years on the bench, he had rarely seen such a clear demonstration of entitlement and complete disregard for law, public safety, and basic human decency. He detailed everything Ashley had done: crashed into a family business while grossly intoxicated, destroying property and livelihoods, attempted to flee, assaulted police officers, resisted lawful arrest. And through it all, her only concern was calling her father to make it disappear. The judge then addressed the deeper issue, the pattern that had led to this moment. He noted this was her third DUI in 18 months and her seventh arrest in 5 years, yet every previous charge had mysteriously vanished because her father was police chief and had spent 5 years teaching her that consequences didn't exist for her. Then Ashley did something that shocked everyone in the courtroom. As Judge Caprio spoke, her hand slowly moved to her pocket. She pulled out her cell phone, which had been returned to her with her personal items for the court appearance. Right there in open court, while the judge was addressing her, Ashley unlocked her phone and began scrolling through her contacts. The bailiff noticed immediately and alerted Judge Caprio. The judge stopped speaking and asked Ashley directly what she was doing. Without looking up from her screen, Ashley said she needed to talk to her father. Judge Caprio pointed out that she was in the middle of a court proceeding. Ashley, finding her father's contact and pressing call, said that he needed to know what the judge was saying, that he could explain everything. Her attorney lunged toward her, telling her to put the phone away, but Ashley raised it to her ear. In the silent courtroom, everyone could hear the phone ringing through the speaker. And Judge Frank Caprio made a decision that would change everything. He told Ashley to put the phone on speaker so everyone could hear what her father had to say.